there we go. I've checked.
Yeah.
At least YouTube and X is live. LinkedIn gave us 2 views last time, so it's not that important.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, good mid-afternoon, Will. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. It's a wonderful day here today in Oslo. Pretty sunny. It's been shitty weather past couple of days.
I imagine in Oslo right now it's fresh and clean and blue skies.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is at the moment, and it's like what 22 degrees. So that's just perfect. Everyone's probably outside except me.
Yeah. Um, cool. Right. For those that are listening and those that will rewatch, I'm Dan, developer advocate at roadmap.sh. This is episode 3 of what I guess is now a podcast, technically. If we're doing episodes of the same thing repeated in video and audio format, that makes it a podcast. This is my roadmap, episode 3 with Will. Will, if you want to give a quick introduction of not too much of who you are, because we're going to cover that,
Yeah.
but what you're up to right now, and then we'll rewind time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Dan, and thanks for having me on your now podcast for the stream. Looking forward to having fun on this one. So I'm William, for anyone listening. I am the founder of Hackmamba. I've sort of done everything else except design. I'm going to wait till we get to that stage. But currently, I just help everyone at Hackmamba be successful. And Hackmamba is a technical content agency. We work with marketing teams and product teams to create technical content, either for SEO or just to drive deeper product adoption. And I just apply all the skills I've acquired over the years to amplify every other person at Hackmamba. So yeah, Amplification Officer. I think that's my job title at the
Okay,
moment.
we'll go that. Maybe that can be a future title that gets adopted everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like developer advocate starting their own company, which is pretty much what you did, right? So let's go all the way back. Let's start with education first, because some people have loads, some people have
Hmm.
none.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what your education was like.
Yeah. So I am a chemical engineer in trading. So I spent 5 years in the university studying chemical engineering. So I understand a lot about reactors, batch reactors, continuous state tank reactors, all that kind of stuff. I thought I would become like a petroleum engineer or a subsea engineer because I'm from Nigeria originally, and it's an oil-rich country. And at that time, everyone wanted to be a petroleum engineer. At least my father wanted me to be a petroleum engineer. So I studied chemical engineering, and I think I was darn good at it as well at the time. So with education, that was that was it. Chemical engineering.
And what does I don't think, at least in the UK, I've not heard of a petroleum engineer before.
Mhm.
How does one engineer petroleum?
So basically, you just care about getting oil and gas out of the ground and piping it to homes. I guess that's the outcome is getting it from the ground, sending it to people's homes, and that's what petroleum engineering is. But then there are other things in between, right? To get the petroleum out of the ground, you need to first find it. You need to explore. When you find it, you need to get it out. You need to pipe it out. So you need another platform to do that and everything around that. And then you need to refine this petroleum. Once you're done refining, you need to distribute it. And from distribution, that's when it gets to, you know, you need to sell it, right? People need to buy it or get your hands on it. So petroleum engineers are sort of like concerned with different parts of this, but I would say more of the production, so exploration and production. That's where you find petroleum engineers, chemical engineers, and other forms of like engineers, structural engineers, civil engineers come into like the other parts of the value chain. But petroleum engineer, then you would focus mostly on like production and sometimes post production processing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So what I got from that was everything,
Yeah.
everything in petroleum.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
was your education? So you did an internship, right? So you did go into it.
Yeah,
briefly,
yeah.
at least for 6 months, you did an internship in the
Hmm.
Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, which by name sounds pretty significant.
Yeah, so it's the petroleum company of Nigeria, right? I think every oil rich nation has one. So I worked there. I worked in the gas division as an intern. So in university, fourth year, you need to go do some like 6 year internship with a company related to what you study. So I went to the oil company. I was lucky. I got like a position there as an intern. I didn't spend time on like the fields, the oil fields or the gas fields as I would like. I was mostly like in the offices, reviewing process flow diagrams, helping facilitate like production sharing contracts and reviewing joint venture agreements then. So that was mostly what I did then. Yeah, and just like hanging around the offices making coffee because intern, right? Yeah, I just grabbed all I could then. But that was it. But I was really ecstatic about it because I worked closely with people who had been in the field. They came from these oil platforms that were in the Niger Delta and then so in the southern part of Nigeria. Some of them had worked on like floating production storage offshore facilities, so FPSOs, and yeah, it was an FLNG being built then. We're all excited about. But yeah, it was mostly folks that come from the field. And if you asked a lot of questions, they would, answer those. So we got more theoretical knowledge, but closely related to what's on the field rather than what we're taught in school. So
Mm.
that was mostly what I did. What I did then.
That's interesting because that is what happens, right? Like, this is about your story, but we briefly covered mine on your podcast yesterday
Yeah,
about, in the army, the training is one thing. As soon as you go to a real unit,
yeah,
it's all completely different. And
yeah,
I guess that's the same in every job, right? Like, I
yeah,
didn't go to university, so I didn't have that experience of being taught something and then doing it professionally and it being completely different. But the experience I have is pretty much there in that.
yeah,
Pretty accurate.
yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I wished. And thanks, Daniel, for the compliment. I wish I did study chemical engineering because I did really like, I liked it. I liked engineering. I think after a while, I realized I was attracted to solving problems rather than just engineering, and I would
Mm.
do well in any engineering discipline. At least I think I haven't tried as many, just two so far. Um, so so yeah, that's what I really liked about chemical engineering. Maybe in the future when tech pays, software engineering pays, I'll go back and go do some chemical engineering. I actually wanted to come to Norway in 2014. At least I thought of coming to Norway in 2014 to study subsea engineering for a master's degree in NTNU. And it's interesting because recently I went to Trondheim, where that school is, and I saw it and I was like, here's what could have been, but wasn't. Because then there was no way I could come to Norway. It's almost impossible to dream it even.
There's a few people that are happy that tech didn't lose you. So
Yeah, I'd have been in NMPC somewhere. I'm also happy because tech is better. It's moving
so
faster, I would say.
talking about tech being better, what happened? Because you were an intern in NNPC
Hmm.
and then you were no longer in that
Yeah,
trade.
yeah. So this is where it gets like really interesting because uh, any Nigerian listening to me would know like, yeah, the country has the potential to be really good, but then it's, for the lack of a better word, just fucked. so so when I finished university, I was like, okay, so what am I going to do next? Uh, I tried to apply to jobs as a chemical engineer. Obviously, there are thousands of people like me study chemical engineering, process engineering, mechanical. We're all vying for the same well-paid oil jobs, so it's impossible. So I decided, okay, what can I control? Right? I needed to look for the things I can control and those I cannot. I cannot control getting a job in Nigeria. That's just how it is. However, I study, however good grades I come out with. But then I got introduced to software engineering while I was in school by my good friend Christian Wamba. He works at Amazon. Folks know him as Code Beast. So back then in school, he was really, he was studying computer engineering as well. He got into it. He really liked it. I was in chemical engineering, and then after school, he continued as a computer engineer, software engineer now. And he's like, hey man, come, let's write code, right? You can build websites, you can build all these ideas you always have. Because I always have ideas, and I'll be like, hey man, help me build these things. And we try after 2 weeks, he dumps it and goes to do something else. So I figured, okay, I think this would make sense. I got a job actually as a project administrator for a company in the northern part of Nigeria. I did it for 1 year and I left that. I was like, okay, this is not going to buy me a car anytime soon. First, right? I was like, I'm going to keep struggling with this, and I decided to go back to Lagos, which was where I lived then. I left that job and go learn to code. I thought my goal was after 6 months I should be ready to get an internship, right? That was the goal. Get an internship. How do I get there? I knew I needed to learn how to code. So I started writing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React. I wrote Vue first before React. Working with static site generators from Metal Smith. Then that's the one I tried first to Gatsby eventually, and then React. I'll take on like small side projects to both learn and also build stuff, build like small apps, websites for people. And then I got involved with the community. I figured I like problems and people. So yeah, I put both of them together, and the best place to find out was in tech community. So I started contributing to For Loop. For anyone that's in Nigeria, they probably know For Loop. So I was organizing as a volunteer. A lot of that was just volunteering to hold like meetups, hackathons. I was always traveling to organize these hackathons, sleeping on like school benches to organize these. But I met a lot of people through that. I built some reputation as this guy in community that's just always there. Um, we're always organizing meetups with like $200 budget. We buy like pizza and swag and all that. So and then at the same time, I was teaching myself to code. So I would have like 14, 16 hour work days. The only thing I was doing was just learning to code and organizing community events. And from the community, I started writing. I first started writing about the community events, and I started writing about what I was learning. So my first articles were around JavaScript methods and writing about dot map and reduce and sort what uh, what JavaScript methods were mutable or immutable. Those were the first things I was writing, and it was from the community and me learning to code. So bit of a long answer. That's how I went from chemical engineering was to quit the 1 year job I had, and then just go head straight into learning to code.
So that was at Andela.
No,
Wait,
so this was
no, this was Andela was
before
afterwards.
Andela.
Okay.
Yeah, Andela was afterwards. So yeah, that's an interesting progression there. So after I figured I could, I've learned to code to a reasonable degree. I could build like websites, applications, build like mostly web apps, front end, back end, all that stuff. Obviously, I was broke. So throughout my life, I always check three things that I have: is do I have time? Uh, do I have money? What's the third thing? Yeah, the ideas that I want to build with, right? So uh, when I was in school, I always had like ideas, and I had quite a bit of time, but I was broke as shit. After school, I still had these ideas, but I didn't have as much time and I didn't have money. So I figured I needed to get money somehow, right? So I needed something a bit steady. And I started out as a freelancer. To get like a proper job, you need some sort of like I would say, some sort of like a stamp or an accreditation or someone that says, hey, he has this experience or he's worked here for a while. So, or he has this certificate, and I had none of that. So I thought I'll just take a job, right? And I saw Andela at the time was hiring, and I have experience from like community. I'm a web developer. Um, and the job just felt like perfect. It was a project assistant or program assistant for um, for these partnerships Andela usually has with Google and Microsoft and multinational companies. So they have these CSR projects they have with multinational tech companies where they put out like MOOC courseware, like open courseware on Udacity or Pluralsight. Folks complete it and then they get certificates. So they need people to lead those projects. So that's how I joined Andela. They were hiring someone to be a program assistant or program manager for that. And I felt, yeah, it's a nice job, not well paid at all. I was probably making 1/10 of what I made from being a freelancer, but I just needed some sort of validation and also to be sure that I'm not like a fraud. At that time, I knew what I said I knew, right? So I took that job, and I did well. We reached over what 30,000 learners. Folks learn about like Google technologies at the time. The program like exploded. It was really good. Andela did like a fantastic job with like the ecosystem then in Nigeria. I know a lot of founders and engineers both home and abroad that came from that, like the setup by Andela then. So that's what I did. I spent 1 year there through Andela because they are an international company. I got a US visa. I took my community preachings to the US, was just talking all about like Jamstack and JavaScript and how my sermon then as a preacher was your shit doesn't work in Africa. That was ballsy. That was bold at the time. But I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go talk about how folks build applications and software for themselves in the States. But it doesn't work halfway across the world. It doesn't work in the global south. It doesn't work in India. It doesn't work in Nigeria with 200 million people in it. And a lot of people resonated with that. And that was when folks were looking at the rise of like Jamstack technologies and shipping applications and CDNs and very performant websites. Next.js was taking a foothold. Gatsby was, Nox.js and Vue.js were all looking at like performance. So it was sort of like a good sermon. And I wasn't just talking about the technology, I was also talking about the community, talking about how we organize meetups that have almost 1,000 people in them, and it's a meetup. It's not a conference, right? Our regular meetups have 150 to 200 people. We organize from Angular meetups to React meetups. They're mostly like web focused meetups that we had then. So yeah, with Andela, I went to the US. I gave talks at Cardinary, Adobe, meetups organized at Node SF. I remember I met folks at Twilio. It was sort of like a tech tour. That's what I branded it as. Was collecting stories from all these companies and writing blog posts about them, and also talking about what we do in Nigeria and in Africa as much as possible. I did the same in Kenya. Visited a couple of offices, spoke at meetups there. Did the same in Tanzania. Same thing. And most all of these I paid for by myself. I remember then I asked Andela and they were like, no, this is not related to your job, corporate BS. And I had to spend all my money.
And I was about to say that sounds really good that you got paid to do that, but you didn't.
Yeah, I didn't. Someone did pay me, and I always like to mention that anytime I can. It was Mickey at Cardinal at the time, still my friend now. He was like, "Hey, you're creating a lot of value from this trip. You're creating a lot of content. You're talking to a number of people. Um, I would sponsor you if you found a way to weave in Cloudinary into this, right?" And naturally, I already talked about Cloudinary everywhere. I was like, I love the product, so I was like, "Yeah, sure. Cloudinary is already like on the slides. How much can you give me?" And he's like, he's going to give me $2,000. I'm like, wow, okay, that's the most money anyone's ever given me. He probably doesn't know now. But that paid for like a bit of my flights and some of like the hotel costs. I did 4 cities in the US then, and came back home to Nigeria. And I was like, okay, I've seen what's possible. I'm going to quit my job again for the second time. So I left Andela with no hope of like no job. I was like, okay, maybe I'll start a business now, or I'll just continue this evangelism, keep creating content. Chris at Scotch.io was paying me, I think it was 150 to $300 to write blog posts then on Scotch. Yeah, so I was doing that, writing newsletters too. So that's how I made like some money then. But I quit my job at Andela because it was taking a lot of my time, and yeah, just didn't make sense anymore.
Yeah, that's a lot for that's a lot to get paid for a blog post. That,
Yeah.
at least then, I remember my first. Well, first of all, I went through the same Jamstack obsession in like
Hmm.
2017, 2018. I'd make a
Yeah.
Gatsby. I made a Gatsby site for anyone that would take it. Like I think there was like a local yoga studio, the local jiu-jitsu gym. Some promoter wanted one. I had
Okay.
Netlify was just full of Gatsby sites for just all these different people.
Yeah.
But I was terrible. I did it all for free because
Wow.
yeah, just terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it was back then, but it was like I'll do all this for free, and then surely someone will pay me at some
Yeah.
point, right? Yeah.
And
Never did.
someone did
And
pay you. Oh, no one
no,
did.
no, I never
Okay.
got paid. Well, actually, I did one freelance like web development job.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh.
only one, and my technical writing career wasn't as good as yours, uh, especially in the early days. I think I at one point I was getting paid like £10 for a post.
What?
Yeah, and but I was really happy. I was really happy because
Hmm.
some of them I was doing tech reviews, and they would send me the
Okay.
product. I get to keep it.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Okay.
like I would keep. I had some really good like Adidas running headphones, some really good
Hmm.
gaming headphones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was happy to get abused if I got
With
free
all the
headphones.
products.
Yeah, it didn't matter to me. It was fine.
Yeah.
Um, awesome. So you went from Nigeria to the States,
Hmm.
and then you quit your job to pursue something. What did you pursue?
Yeah. So what I pursued was obviously nothing. Um, at that time, I figured, okay, I'm going to write as much technical articles I can for $150 per blog post. And I live in Nigeria, so I didn't spend a lot of money. I think my monthly I would probably spend like $400 at the time. Um, so I continued doing that, and then just creating content, facilitating like community events for Four Loop. Then they just kept me busy. I got like a couple of gigs here and there to maintain open source project for Gatsby. For instance, I did that as a maintainer at Gatsby for a couple of months, just triaging issues, reproducing them, and sending like working with engineers internally to fix them, and then report that hey, something is fixed. So I did that for a couple of months. I worked on some freelance gig as a software engineer, building like a Gatsby website. I remember this guy from France was building like a ski website, probably the shittiest website I ever seen. But he loved it. He really loved it. He cared about performance more than how it looked. So we worked on that for a couple of months, and then my friend still, Chris, calls me one day. He's like, "Hey, there's this guy um, in Dubai. He wants to build an online grocery product, and he's looking for a product manager, right? A technical product manager." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. So what's the job description of a technical product manager?" He's like, "He doesn't know. I just should talk to that guy." And I know if there's anything I know how to do well, it's probably to sell. At least I think I do. So I called up a friend of mine. I worked at Andela, Musti. He probably also doesn't remember this call. But I called him up. I'm like, "Hey, Musti, I know you're a program manager, similar to a product manager there at Andela. What do you do? What does your day to day look like?" And he tells me like everything he does. I'm like, "Okay, there's nothing out of the ordinary here. He just cares about like why like the engineers build stuff, what they build, and communicates that like across board to everyone. Helps unblock the engineers where possible, either design or technical specifications." I'm like, "Okay, I already do this in some form when I was working with like a community, and when I work with as a freelance engineer, I do bits and pieces of this." So I get on the call with this guy, he's Maybed, top guy in Dubai then, um, and we talk about the product he wants to build. It's an online grocery company, and he wants to assemble a team and we would all move to Dubai to build it. It's a Saudi product for a Saudi founder, and Maybeth would be the CTO. So I was like, yeah, this sounds like fun. And I said, yeah, I offered to like get started immediately. I didn't care if I was getting paid. I was like, yeah, I'm going to bring in all the knowledge I have from creating content to writing code to, managing people, doing like whatever. Yeah. So I got hired as the first person, the first product manager, technical product manager, and I was tasked to hire like two other people. So I had two of my friends, John and Emmanuel, right, from Nigeria, and we moved to Dubai, bought a one-way ticket to Dubai to build that product. So this was 2019. We spent 2 years there in Sandpit, working on this. I was doing like everything as usual. I was contributing to like some of the features on the code, reviewing the code. We're a very small team, working with the design team in Greece, reviewing content with the team in Egypt, working with the business team in Saudi Arabia to either like onboard drivers or just review the business, talking to the founder to understand his vision for the product as a product manager, creating like checklist, specification documents, managing Trello at the time. So did all of that stuff. The company failed to start with because we made a hard pivot. I learned a lot about like margins, gross margins then. So we started out as, or the initial vision was to be a grocery store, an online grocery store with a dark store, right? So no one walks in. It's just a store somewhere, almost like a warehouse, right? But this would mean that we would control production, would control a bit more of the value chain. Maybe not production, but we'll buy directly from producers. The margins are higher that way, right? When we sell, and we would control like distribution, all of the value chain across distribution, from the riders to delivering it to like homes, the packaging, branding, all of that, and we could, derive value from everything um, across that. But then the pandemic hits in 2020. We were 1 year in, so we had to figure out like, hey, what do we do? No, we're less than a year in. We were 6 months in because this was March. I moved in October, so we're about like six months in when the pandemic hits. And 6 months in, we've done like two rebuilds of the application, two through rebuilds of the application. Really smart guys. So we literally rebuild the whole thing in weekends. We spend the weekend um, just maybe migrating from JavaScript to TypeScript, or switching up like the whole infrastructure and what we have. Our CTO Bebed, totally brilliant guy as well. But it was a lot of hard work and I loved it. Right. We had like, we're just working, sleeping, working till 2 a.m. And then we go to bed, wake up 9, 10 a.m., get started again. So that was the grind. At that time, I didn't like it. I wish I could enjoy Dubai more because I lived there, but it was just grinding out in the startup. And it did form me, it did forge me as well. Um, so we did that, but back to margins. When the pandemic hit 6 months later, we figured that, okay, we needed to move fast because there was an opportunity here. Everyone's going to be locked up at home. We needed, and they needed to order groceries somehow. So we needed to speed up. And the founder said, made a decision, which I think maybe in hindsight, he thinks it's great. But for me, I think that didn't make sense. We decided to become a marketplace for grocery stores instead of being a grocery store ourselves. So we would feature other grocery stores on the platform. But this meant that we only get what we're given. So the grocery stores could only cede 1 to 2% margins on the product. And we know grocery store items, if something is bought for £2, for instance, if you mark up the price to £3, everyone notices. Everyone knows, like, oh, I used to buy an apple for £2.50 or £1.50. I don't know what the price is, but now it's £3 on this app. So everyone would avoid that. But still, we tried to put this platform, to put these grocery stores. This meant we needed to do like the fourth rebuild. We needed to change the whole system, not to support one grocery store, but multiple now. And the logistics that came with all of them, the data formats that came with all of them. So it was hectic, but it was interesting. It was an interesting challenge. A number of restrictions came in with COVID. We needed to find a way to onboard drivers and retrieve some health certificate that only the government issued. And we had to deal with government APIs. We needed to deal with content in Arabic and in English. And we needed to do all these fast because we needed to meet COVID deadlines. So we tried, we got all these in, but we couldn't get traction. And we didn't have enough money. We were running out of money. I think the founder at that time had spent $2 million. That's what he told me. He spent $2 million on this, putting together a team, building this thing over the last like 1 year. And the design team were like really great, Albert and the team in Greece. Um, so he's like, we're running out of money. He tries to raise some money, but everyone is just lowballing him, trying to get like a huge chunk of the company for like peanuts. It's like someone's trying to give him $1 million for 15%. And there's this sort of like there's this pride in Saudi Arabia when you build your thing, it's yours. You're the main person. You don't just like give it out that way. So we didn't raise money. And I think at the time, the founder, what we heard was he became a minister. He first like got sick. We were told he wasn't communicating with us. We weren't hearing from him. He just like literally vanished. He said he's sick. We stopped receiving salaries. That was interesting times. We stopped receiving salaries. Now we're progressing to like late 2020, right? Because we're not getting any sales. Margins were too low to sustain the business. Um, and we heard our founder became a minister in Saudi Arabia. Uh, it was just rumors at this time, but no communication whatsoever to us. We're just wearing face masks to the office with like 4 people, and just hanging out, building stuff. So then, right there in the office, I thought I would start Hackmamba. I was like,
Okay.
okay, I've been writing all these articles on the side. Took a bit of like a slow pause when I moved to Dubai, but I figured, okay, I'll just start a company that created content for SaaS businesses because I was getting a lot of requests from folks that were like, hey, do you have time to write this article for us? Do you have time to write this or write that? And I spent like uh, and I could see the difference between the article I wrote with what they got elsewhere because I was also helping to review the content they got from other freelancers. And I'll be like, okay, so this is shit. This doesn't work. I'm an engineer. I think maybe I was looking at things from like the lens of a product manager and also a software engineer. I was like, okay, this wouldn't work. So that's how I started Hackmamba.
Okay. So you started Hackmamba while you were still in Dubai.
Yeah, while I was still in Dubai in 2021.
Okay, and then you
Mhm.
moved to where you are now.
Yeah, and then I moved to Norway. So 2021. No, I started Hackmamba in late 2020, right? And then in 2021, I woke up January. I was like, okay, I need to leave this place. It's no longer fun in Dubai. The world is opening. We just survived some COVID, and I like to travel. So, and I know with Dubai, I can only travel to a few countries. I've probably just been to like 8, 9 countries at that time. And as a Nigerian passport holder, you cannot go anywhere. You need to build like some credibility, else the embassies will think you're going to run away. So I figured I needed to go somewhere, somewhere else. Um, and I just thought I'd go to Norway. I seen pictures of Norway. It looked nice. The fjords look beautiful. The outdoors look great. But I knew nothing else about Norway. I only know it's super cold. Um, and that was it. So I figured, okay, I think Norway it is then. Yep. Hi, is codes. Um, so I figured I'll just move to Norway, but you can't just one up and move to Norway if you're from Nigeria. You need to get a visa. And I knew the only way for me to get a visa was as a skilled worker. I need to, show them that I know what I'm doing, right? I have all these skills across like tech. Um, so I needed to get a job to move to Norway. So I figured, okay, I'm going to get a job as a product manager, again, a technical product manager, or at least look for a company that values the unique blend of skills I'll bring. So I started applying to jobs. I would apply to 30, 40 roles a day, just going through from like LinkedIn, going through like different job boards, setting up alerts. So yeah, it was 30 jobs a day. That's what I was applying to. And all I needed was one interview. That's what I said. And I got one interview. I probably applied to everyone, like all the companies in Oslo and in Norway. I got one interview for a company called Porter Buddy. They're a logistics tech company. So they work with e-commerce. They work with e-commerce stores. And they wanted a technical product manager, someone that would help with developer experience, right? That would manage like from their docs, integrations, and then I was just the perfect fit because both the product manager, I have engineering experience. I'm just coming off like e-commerce. I've written a lot of like documentation, written a lot of content, worked with like everyone. The only thing I hadn't done was design, product design. So it just sort of made sense that when I had the interviews for anyone I spoke to, I was speaking their language. I'm talking to the CTO. We're talking about like we're talking about the engineering bits, right? We're talking about system design, how to design the product, what the gaps are. And the thing I did then was for every interview I went in with very hard questions. I think about what question will this guy not be unable to answer? And that's what I go to that interview with, at least five of them. And I go in with those. And they just make for like bigger conversations. And there's this sort of mental thing where they feel like they need to get to the root of this question. They need to answer these things with you after, right? They just have you top of mind because you left an imprint somehow. Um, so yeah, I got that interview, blew through most of it. They asked me if I'm okay with moving to Norway because I'm in Dubai. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm fine with I'm fine with moving to Norway. So yeah, I got the job. I waited to get to Norway because I couldn't because Norway didn't allow anyone in because of COVID. I was trying to find like loopholes in the system. They were letting some countries. So I went to like Seychelles, I went to Albania, I went to Georgia, uh, the European countries I could go to find a way into Norway, but I couldn't. They were like, hey, you're a resident of the UAE, we need to allow folks from the UAE to come into Norway before you can move to Norway. I was like, okay, I'll wait. And my residence expired in November 2021. So I kept waiting and waiting. And in October, I was like, okay, I need to leave this place because I don't want to renew my residence there. I don't want to start a company there and have to like pay a lot of money when I know I'll move to Norway. So I had two options. I was like, I'll go to Bolivia or I go to the UK. That was it. And then I would only buy one way flights to wherever because I don't know where I'll come out of. So the week I was supposed to buy the flight, they says I get like an email that says, "Hey, you're approved to get into Norway now. Go to like VFS and submit like your passport, or you can go to the embassy in Abu Dhabi to submit your passport." I was like, holy shit, okay, this is happening. So this was on a Thursday. I go to I go to Abu Dhabi straight up the next day. No, not the next day. It was on the Wednesday I got this. I got on Thursday. Friday is a holiday. So I go to Abu Dhabi on Thursday, taxi from Dubai, submit my passport, got like captured, did all that stuff. I waited. I got my passport the next week on Tuesday with like an entry visa. I bought a flight for either Thursday or Friday. That was the 4th of November. Then a one-way ticket to Norway. And, yeah, sold all the things I could sell in 3 days in Dubai. Ditched the UK visa I got, canceled Bolivia plans, and just took that one-way flight to Oslo. And it was cold as shit.
Well, what time of the year is that again? November.
Yeah, yeah.
November time.
So
Yeah.
it was like 4th of November. So I left Dubai. It was 32 degrees that day. I get to Oslo. It was -1 and windy. It was like blowing. It wasn't snowing, but yeah, it was crazy.
Well, it probably would have been worse for you if you came to the UK. To be honest,
Yeah,
it,
I do
it,
know
pro-
what that was.
it probably would have been raining and windy and cold.
Yeah,
So the
huh?
worst.
Yeah, good
Let's
thing I got
let's
here then.
talk. Let's talk. We have
Hmm.
we have like 15 minutes left, just over. Let's talk Hackmamba. Let's talk how that
Hmm.
went from you you decided while you were in Dubai that you wanted to create a
Hmm.
company that you could leverage all these skills you built,
Hmm.
You knew there was a market for it. You knew you had the skills, so you did it. Now you're in Norway.
Yeah.
I'm talking back then. You are now,
Hmm.
but I mean back then. You're in Norway. You have this plan. How did you execute on starting Hackmamba? And I'm super interested in when it really became something. Because
Yeah.
Hackmamba now is a company. It has employees, right? It is a
Yeah.
fully fledged company. So
Yeah.
how did it go from side project to company?
Yeah. So at about this time last year, it became a company, like a full time thing I was working on from 2021 to 2023. While I hopped jobs and tried to figure out like what I'm going to do in life, I was still a technical writer, right? I was a technical writer, and I hired a couple of people, technical writers, to work with me at Hackmamba. So Hackmamba has always been a company incorporated in the US, and we were serving few clients, two clients, three sometimes, but usually not more than three. And that was enough. That was enough to generate some revenue to pay for like trips, pay everyone. And I was sort of like feeling it out, right? Taking only inbound clients, converting them, like selling, doing like all the operational stuff, accounting, marketing, and occasionally I would bring on someone to help as an assistant, and they are terrific, so they stay on board as a as a contractor. A number of them, they start out as, so I've always adopted some sort of like a revenue share model with Hackmamba. Is whatever money we make, if we make money, everyone else makes money. If we don't, no one does, right? Whoever works at Hackmamba, that's how we used to work, because I didn't want to like go under and be in debt. um, so I did that for 2 years, just kept servicing like clients. Our main focus was on quality. We knew there was a market for what we did. Our main focus was on quality. Sometimes that quality dipped because I just wasn't paying attention. Maybe I had like so much work to do during the day. I spent 4 or 5 hours each day after work on Hackmamba consistently for that 2 years. So I always had 12-hour, 14-hour work days. That was normal. Whether I'm on a trip, I'm in the mountains, I'm in ground, wherever. That was a given. So I was running Hackmamba that way. And then last year, I started getting feeling like, okay, I'm done with first hopping jobs. Secondly, was I've just been doing stuff that I'm good at, I can do, but I don't really care about. I care about like people and um, solving these problems. And again, when I see a problem I want to solve, but I really can't solve it because someone above me says, hey, you cannot do this, I get really pissed. I get like, I wish I could do this. I know this would work from my experience. Has worked. I try to convince them, they don't see reason with me. Uh, I see it, but there's still something in me residually that says, you can do this. And I know I could do so much more. I'd seen glimpses of it with Hackmamba. So last year, I reached an agreement with Uniform where I worked to say, okay, I'm going to go work on like my thing full time. Um, because I wasn't doing much with my role at Uniform as a technical product manager in charge of developer experience and onboarding. But we moved from a self-service model, from a PLG model to an SLG model. So we're mostly working with sales teams to drive revenue growth. So there wasn't much for me to do. So I was like, okay, I think now's the time. I'm not going to look for another job. From Hackmamba, I'd saved up some money, and from Uniform, I have 6 months runway. I'm just going to go ahead first and make it work. So this meant I needed to solidify the sales processes. I needed to put the marketing team like in place and have goals and everything. All the skills I acquired throughout the years, I needed to apply them, and not just apply them and we see what happens, but apply them towards, we need to make money. We need to actually be sustainable. We need to grow a company. So that's what I've been doing for 1 year now. So sometime towards the end of July, I started Hackmamba full time 1st of August 2023. Yeah, and it's been great. I've been delegating, or at least I've been learning to delegate a number of things from marketing, trusting Henry, our head of marketing, more, trusting Fatima with our community more, um, having Zainab on accounting, and then just taking on sales myself because I figured no one could sell Hackmamba as good as I can. At least those that can, I can afford them now. So for now, I do all of like, everything from designing outbound campaigns to actually reaching out to people, creating content internally, and again, as a technical writer, I cannot be far from the content creation process. So our operation, the thing that actually makes Hackmamba. So I spend a good chunk of my time reviewing articles, making sure like our process is tight, hiring as well, bringing on like good reviewers. I've brought on reviewers in the past that's burnt us, but I know what a good reviewer looks like when they actually review content. I see what they see, right? So um, I bring them on board. I try to coach them as much as possible, share a lot of knowledge I know, make a lot of videos, document a lot of stuff so they get it. My goal is that everyone that works at Hackmamba, after 6 months, they're a whole lot better than how they when they came on, and they're hopefully better than me at whatever they do, right? So yeah, that's currently the state of Hackmamba. We're doing really good. We're doing better than I expected 1 year ago. um, so so that's fine, and the team is happy. Everyone is happy. Everyone is excited to continue working on this because we see the impact of what we do when we create content. Our customers are happy. We get like, hey, this is really 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 good. So yeah, and when we review content that's out there, we're like, oh, we know we can do so much better than this. Yeah.
Okay, I have we have one question in the chat, but
Hmm.
I have a question first. Sorry, chatter, but I'm here talking and you're not, so I can jump in ahead. Um, you mentioned how you had a runway, a
Hmm.
personal runway of about 6 months. Assuming that is rent and stuff, right? That's your personal runway. What advice would you give people who have that runway? So they have the financial capabilities to do it. They have an idea, but they just aren't actioning it. What advice would you give that person?
Yeah. So if they have runway, and I would say, again, like in my case, you need to look at like all the variables. If possible, write them down. I wrote everything down. I wrote how much I need to pay myself personally because I need to earn a salary to live in Norway, right? So I wrote this down. How do I ensure that the really good people at Hackmamba, I keep them, right? And also we can keep growing. At least all the things we need, and then at least like, okay, so what don't we have, right, to go forward? At least I try to make like a good, really good guess as to what's required. You can't know everything, right? But I try to think like, what do we really need? And those that we do not have, I think, can I take them up, right? Work has to come from somewhere. In my case, I figured, okay, I have to do a lot, and I needed to prepare myself mentally to do a lot of the sales, a lot of the customer support content operations, create content. Um, and then I created chores. Something I introduced last year at Hackmamba was chores. So these are tangible outputs that if we stick to and create a habit of, we would reach the outcomes that we've set. And these cut across different business functions, from content creation to lead generation to be growing my network, because that's how we mostly got inbound leads. And I put these chores down. I said, we're going to publish a blog post once a week. If we don't know what to write, we look at our community, answer one question, write 400 words and publish it. So we're going to publish a blog post each week. I'm going to create content on Twitter and LinkedIn to grow my network. I'm going to send 60 LinkedIn connection requests each week. So I'm going to try to connect with 60 people organically, not selling them anything, just growing my network. We're going to send a newsletter each week as well. So these chores, they mostly affected business development and just growing the overall brand. So once we had these chores, I knew what was missing and I knew what I needed to do. I was like, okay, the only thing left is just to grow a pair and go do it, right? There was nothing else left. At the end, it all boils down to actually, taking that leap and doing it. You could know all you need to do. You could know what's left, what is required of you, who you need to pay, all that stuff. But you actually have to go do it. So in my case, I was like, yeah, it's scary, um, but also something that helped. I looked at what's the worst that could happen was this wouldn't work. I may have to find a job, but that's like the worst case, the worst case scenario, like the worst case scenario was I would look for a job. And I live in Norway. Things are really good here. I usually say it's very hard for something to go wrong in Norway. So that being in Norway alone, mentally, I think that's safety, right?
Mm.
So I sort of got that. But I do know if everything goes wrong, I'll go become like a salesperson or go do something else. There's always going to be something to generate income out there.
Yeah, that's good, I guess. I mean, I guess the overall the overall advice you just gave really was if you have the money to do it and you have
Hmm.
the idea, then you just need to write everything down,
Yeah,
write your vision down on paper so you can see it, and then just do it.
yeah,
Just do it, but know in the back of your mind what you have to do if it fails, and be prepared to do it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's just it.
Okay. Awesome. Now we did have one question that came up. That person might not be here anymore, but they can see it in the replay. Um, I have a question that how do I start my web development journey? I'm doing JavaScript with React, and I'm also doing BSCS in uni. They want to go. Let's forget the master's degree part and freelancing. Let's how to get a start in web dev. Now, I mean, I could take part of that. I mean, right here is how you could. It's a pretty good place.
To get started.
Yeah, a pretty good place to learn if you
Yeah.
need to. Um,
Hmm.
but then it's always the question of how do you actually get into the
Yeah.
tech, which is the difficult thing. I don't know if
Yeah.
you have any advice.
I mean, I could share advice, like some advice from my experience and what worked for me. The biggest things that worked for me was were there were three things mostly. It was building, just having a building like a builder's mindset, not just learning, but you're going to build something, whatever, however small. It was building and then community. The community was either through contributing with content or just facilitating other conversations. If you're not in the driver's seat, you want to be in the passenger seat. Worst case, you're in the back seat, but you're not outside. You just want to be in the vehicle while it's moving. You want to be in the car. So community really did help, being in conversations, contributing to these conversations, coming with value to the community, because that's what people miss is be contributing to community. You don't just come and hang around and have like a taker's mentality. You have to want to contribute something. You must have something to contribute. That's where your skills come into play. That's why you should go to roadmap.sh and know what skills you need, right? So come with like that community, come with community or contribute to the community and come with value. And then lastly was volunteering. I know this isn't popular at the moment because uh, there's a wave of like from cheap labor to folks feeling like exploited, but volunteering really, really, really helped me. If someone needed something anywhere, I was always there to help and helping not because I wanted something in return. I knew something was going to come back to me somehow, but I didn't know how, I didn't know where. So
Mm.
I was always volunteering for stuff, volunteering to organize like a hackathon or a meetup somewhere. I wasn't going to go get paid for it. Volunteering to talk about a product as a developer advocate, and I wasn't going to get paid a dime for it. Right? I was writing blog posts about products that I cared about. And that's okay. I was talking to people, having random conversations with people about anything. If someone needed my input on, starting a business in Nigeria or how developers work in Nigeria or communities, then I would just get on a call and share everything I know. So I was always volunteering and I got a whole lot back from doing that, a whole lot of opportunities, a whole lot of like recommendations. Sometimes not even recommendations, just say, hey, talk to this guy, or hey, meet this person. Or I give someone something and they're absolutely like, I have to pay you. Like, I can't get this for free. Ethically, I have to pay because this will make me money. And I'm like, oh, pay me whatever. And then they pay me something that just blows my mind. I'm like, oh, I was expecting this, right? So I was doing a lot of volunteering, and that really helped my journey. So I know this is not conventional. Folks would be like, yeah, maybe the usual path is learn, get a job, study really hard, grind lead codes. But the unconventional part for me was definitely building stuff, putting it out there, contributing to communities with value, and then finally, what's the like, and then volunteering. That's the last thing I said. Yeah, and then volunteering. So those three things.
You mentioned something before that's completely gone out of my mind now, so I won't be able to remember it. But what I was going to say is I was going to jump onto the community thing as well, and
Hmm.
in my own personal projects and with Roadmap, I've leveraged the community massively. Like the community, oh sorry, like any framework or language, if you just look at documentation by yourself in your room, you can build things, but you're not really going to get that far, right?
Yeah,
And my Discord, as I have so many servers down the side for like every framework,
yeah,
everything. I can just jump in there within 20 minutes. I've got an answer from like a core maintainer of the framework, and
yeah,
it's great. I've I play I play a tabletop RPG with a core member of Astro because you just make
yeah,
you make
yeah,
relationships in these places, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, with Roadmap, where we're currently in the process of revamping the Angular roadmap because it's very outdated.
Hmm.
So I went into the Angular Discord and I put it out there. I said, look, we're rebuilding this thing. It'd be great to have all the experts in here chime in on it, and they did. Core team members were
Yeah,
DMing me, giving feedback. The community is huge, so you
yeah,
cannot underestimate that. And actually, it's a. I remember what I was going to say now when you mentioned delete code. You mentioned how when you were at university studying all the petroleum stuff, and then you did an internship and it was totally different because it was real world stuff, right?
yeah,
Like leak code, some companies might make you do it in an interview, but it's not like that. There's so many memes out there about
yeah.
the interview always being harder than the
And the
actual
chop.
job, right? So,
Yeah,
but the community is not harder than the job. The community is the job. Like all these
yeah,
Discord servers, you can literally go to, like I said, I joined. Most of my side projects are built with Astro, so I joined the Astro community. They're pretty easy
yeah,
to find. That's what I would recommend. Like anything
yeah,
that you're using right now to build, Netlify, Astro, Angular, find their Discord community. Like loads of them will have. They might even have little hackathons. They might have
hmm,
showcase channels, advice channels, mentorship, anything. So that's the advice that I'd give.
yeah. 100%.
Cool. We are over time, but that's fine. Um, so is there anything you want to plug that you haven't already plugged?
Um, nothing really except that go check out Hackmamba. We are growing the largest community of technical writers. So if you're interested in technical writing, we have a roadmap. I created one for
Mm-hmm.
roadmap.sh. I think the technical
Yep.
writing one. Yeah. So check out roadmap.sh. There's check out technical writing. You could also find Hack Members community from there. From the community, we have like community challenges where we work on open source documentation. We review LinkedIn profiles, just help everyone grow. We create content for ourselves. So if you're interested in technical writing at whatever level, yeah, do join up. And if you're there, just say hi for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm in Hackmamba's Discord as well. Like it is good. I
Mm.
see people in there all the time. Fatima, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
controlling that whole leading, controlling that whole thing. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Cool.
cool.
Right. I will end stream then. So thanks everyone for watching.